Brian, let's dive into what the depth chart is going to actually look like. And earlier you said the 2 freshmen. Obviously, you mean the guys that are freshmen right now that are going to be rising sophomores.
Right.
It confused somebody, so I wanted to make sure I brought that up. But the 2 freshmen that played this year obviously will be available in spring, and then you add in Jaden Thomas as well. So there's 3, and then Matt Salerno is 4. I think is that it, or is there one more that I'm – oh, and Braden Lindsey.
Right.
Braden Lindsey will be available in the spring. The injuries, to Joe Wilkins and Avery Davis, those are still up in the air as to when those 2 will be back. So that is kind of
Joe is the only one that I would wonder if he's going to be able to.
You think he might be able
to some degree during the spring?
Gotcha.
I don't see him being like part of a bunch of team stuff, but
maybe some drill.
He got hurt early enough.
Okay.
I mean, he got hurt the first Saturday of October,
and it was an ACL, right?
It was an ACL.
Okay.
And it's what now, like a 6 to 8 month thing now?
Yeah, that'd be about 5 months at the beginning of March. So
I mean, really, if he had the surgery immediately, it's like, because like first week of October, I mean, November, December, January, February, March, beginning of April, you're at 6 months. So like there might be some drill work he can start getting into.
Maybe not lateral.
I don't think he's going to be out there with like 7-on-7 or maybe team stuff, but at least he can. And the reason that's important is because I think Joe brings a lot of leadership to the table. I think Joe can be a more productive player than he's been. Joe's not a super athlete.
Right.
And so he is one of those guys that really needs to be fundamentally sound. That's why he's someone that I think could really become a more productive player with the right position coach. And so I would like to see him get some work in with Chancey Stuckey in the spring.
Yeah.
But, we'll find out if that's the case. But, look, you're not going to have Avery Davis and Joe Wilkins as full-time contributors. I don't think you'll have Avery Davis at all. I mean, he got hurt in November.
Oh, I don't think so.
I don't expect to even see him doing anything except maybe. He'll be off to me, he'll probably be spending time with the trainers during spring practice. Although that's the interesting thing is normally when guys are hurt, they have them over with the trainers during that.
Right.
I would actually like to see them have Avery around the receivers, I
think they need listen and hear.
He's a team captain,
absolutely.
And he's a. Now I don't care about him listening and hearing. They need a leader out there. They need a player leader out there.
That's why it was so important that him and Braden came back, and Joe Wilkins came
back. I don't know how much leadership Braden Lindsey provides. I don't know. I'm not saying he doesn't. I just doesn't strike me as like a, that guy right now. Maybe Braden can start leading by example. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
But, you're not going to have them. So that's the negative, right? Here's the positive, however. Because your numbers are so limited and you don't have the veterans out there, your 2 of your 3 most experienced guys are really not going to be out there. You're going to have 5 scholarship receivers. That's a lot of individual work.
It's a lot of reps
that Chancey Stuckey is going to be able to have with Deion Colsey, Jaden Thomas, and Lorenzo Styles, and Braden Lindsey.
Yeah.
And to me, that could be, and this is why I wanted to emphasize so much the importance of emphasizing developing all-around receivers and teaching them how to do all of it at a high level.
Sure.
And if he can focus on that, that's a lot of reps. Now, of course, the concern is you've got to make sure you're not overdoing it because there's a small number of guys. But my focus is more on there's going to be a lot of individual attention he can put on Deion Colsey and Lorenzo Styles, and especially Deion Colsey, because Deion's, as we've mentioned before, Deion's a year younger than most kids in his grade.
Right.
About a year younger. He's still very young. He was not coached overly well in high school because, in fairness to his high school coaches, he was so much better than the guys he was going against.
Right.
That it's kind of like, it's like that expression, you don't know what you don't know till you
don't know it.
Right.
Right.
Until you're put in a situation where it's clear you don't know it. Right.
Right.
And, when you think, and I've said this before too, you may think you're a hard worker because you're just so successful. You think you're working hard, you're tiring yourself, but you're just so much better than everybody else. You think you've maxed your potential. And then you get to college and you realize, like, there's a lot of dudes out here, right? Like, I thought I was working hard, but and Deion's one of those guys that there's another level he can take his work ethic that he learned, that he's going to learn now, hopefully. And if he can embrace that and embrace the need to be fundamentally sound, I think he's got a chance to be really, really good. And I think he's got a chance to be that sophomore surge guy
Yeah, I
that
was
we're going
gonna.
to write about later, that we've seen a lot
Yeah,
at Notre Dame.
yeah,
We saw Golden Tate and Will Fuller went from 6 catches as freshmen to 1,000 yards as sophomores. Equinemius St. Brown went from 1 catch as a freshman to almost like he was at like 961 as a sophomore, and he would have been over 1,000, but they didn't have a bowl game that year because it was 2016. He would have gone over 1,000. We've seen Miles Boykin go from almost nothing for 3 years to 50 catches and 800 yards. So
sure.
we've seen guys kind of come out of nowhere, and Dion, I would argue, has as much talent as as a lot of those guys.
Yeah,
potential wise, anyway. And so he could look. Kevin Austin leaving was bad, maybe for the entire group, but there's one guy that benefits a lot, and that's Deion Colzie.
No question. I think this is good. This is a super important offseason for him because of exactly what you just said. Because right now, going out of the season, he was second on the depth chart at that position. So just by default, now he's number 1 on the depth chart. By default, I'm not saying that that's how it's
Joe Wilkins won't be there
exactly
in the spring to take those reps away.
He's going to get so many reps, and he is going to get. I mean, he's almost. These guys are almost going to have like a one-on-one relationship with Coach Stuckey. I mean,
right now, people talk about like class size and the rooms, right? Like that's true of football too.
Yeah,
if you can somehow condense, like every coach in America would love to be able to have, like, in my opinion, at least they should, maybe they should, to have a situation where you can break up your practices. Right. Like Mount Union does this at the D3 level. They have like their one practice, and then they have like a freshman team practice. Okay. They have like 300 players on the roster.
Yeah.
And a lot of D3 teams will have huge rosters because
just load them up
at these. Well, it's that, but also number one, that's where a lot of your the school's money comes from. That's where a lot of your male enrollment comes from at these smaller schools.
Yeah, right. They have to hit it.
And so it's like, you want money for your program, make sure your roster has at least 250 kids on it, right? Because you start adding 250 times whatever, tuition is.
Yeah, right.
And that's a lot of money flowing into your program. We can't coach 250 kids at once.
No.
So they would kind of break it up. I don't know if they're still doing that. This is what they did back when I was coaching. Well, that'd be like a dream. Like have my veterans at one practice, and then and this would be like early in camp. By the time you get to the season, you've had enough guys leaving, and you've got like
because
you actually would have like JV coaches basically at Mount Union.
Yeah, you coach veterans differently than you coach rookies.
Right. So like you want to give young guys that one-on-one attention. Well, they're going to be able to do that this spring. And so Deion Colzie is a guy that him and Jaden Thomas are two guys that I think could have big jumps as sophomores as far as being part of that rotation, and they're going to get a ton of individual attention. If Chancey Stuckey puts an emphasis on teaching them how to, I'm talking like from their stance to their start, to their stem, to their top ends, to manipulating DBs on their top ends and their footwork on top ends, teaching them how to stack receivers, teaching them how to properly play the football. I mean, how many times have we complained about how when the ball was in the air, they would just kind of jump and drift? You have to practice not drifting. You're going to drift, right? Like it's not gravity. Possible for a guy to be running full speed jump straight up in the air tonight, but if you focus on getting them to think that they're trying to do that, then when they drift, they're going to be less drifty. Yeah. And they're either going to be able to make the catch or the DB is going to run right through them and you're getting a PI, right? Like there was that call against Virginia where everybody's like, oh, Braden should have got that flag, but he drifted so much, he didn't really invite as much contact as he should have. If he would have been, but you have to teach that. That's not a normal thing. Like another thing that I would, the one phrase that I probably yelled more than any other during my coaching career, it's in the top 5 for sure, it was accelerate through the look back. Because it is a natural tendency when players look back to the ball, they slow down. Yep. Because you don't walk into a room with your eyes closed 100 miles an hour because you don't know where the heck you're going.
Well, that's
once
why
you turn your back, you don't know where you're going.
And that's why in a relay race and track and field, those guys don't turn around.
Right.
They put their hand back there, and that's why you practice that.
Right. And so it's a technical thing where you've got to condition them to think I'm accelerating through the look back. Now they don't actually accelerate through the look back. But what you do is when you condition them to think that they've got to do that, it helps them maintain their speed when they look back for the football.
Exactly.
And so like little things like that have to be part of what he does every day. And if he does that, I don't think anybody benefits more than Deion Colzie from that. He's a guy that to me could be that where did he come from type of, not for Notre Dame fans, because I think Notre Dame fans, especially Irish Breakdown fans, they know how good Deion can be. It's more about nationally looking at that, right? Like, wow, where'd this guy come from?
Right,
Man,
because nobody knows who he is outside of Notre
right,
Dame fans,
right.
because he was
recruit
behind.
nicks, like, you know what I mean? But like, we're talking like people that cover the game and normal fans, like, man, where'd this kid come from?
Right, because he was Kevin Austin's backup. I mean, he was, right?
What did he catch, like 4 passes last year?
Yeah, it's something minuscule like that. He had a couple drops, and so he had a couple forgettable moments, right? And so, yeah,
which freshmen do.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, it's going to be, he has the biggest opportunity to take, I think, the biggest leap from where he's at now to where he could be when the fall starts.
Right.
Yeah,
no doubt.
So excited about him.
And Lorenzo is, already kind of showed that. Now it's about with him, it's just kind of just building on what he showed as a freshman.
Yes.
He arrived pretty fundamentally sound. I don't know if it was his dad getting him a receivers coach. I don't know if his high school coaches were teaching him this or if he just took it on himself, but he showed up at Notre Dame, one of their better route runners. Right. And, now it's about building on that. But with him, it's about getting stronger and just getting, the mental experience of it.
Sure.
He's a guy that has a chance to be really good, and you can use him inside and outside.
And I think that's key too, especially this spring when they're low on well, they're going to be low on numbers all around, but I think because, and I'm, of course, this is me assuming Avery Davis comes back fully healthy, he's an inside guy, and so I would love to see Lorenzo and Avery on the field at the same time, and so having that ability to put Avery on the to put Styles on the outside, that only benefits you.
Right, but also being able to have him in the slot to because I don't know if Avery Davis is going to come off. I mean, he tore, I believe, ACL and MCL.
I think that's accurate.
He's not going to me, in my opinion, be a 60. He's not going to be able to play the volume in 20, at least early. So there's got to be some ways where it's not just, well, when we want to get Avery off the field, we put a second tight end in the game. That's my big fear, that they're going to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
You need to be able to get Lorenzo inside with Tobias and Braden outside, and those type of things. So to me, Lorenzo is going to play all over for me.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
And I think he's a really smart player.
Yep.
So I think he can handle that volume. I do. It's just about designing it in ways to get him moved around in those areas. So the two rising sophomores that we know about are guys that are really going to be important piece to this. Jaden Thomas is a guy that I've heard some things about. Jaden Thomas is a really intriguing player. I liked him as a junior. I gave him a 4-star grade. And then after that, he kind of just fell out a little bit because he had a turf toe injury, I think, is like late in his junior year, and it bothered him as a senior, and he didn't develop as a senior. He just wasn't he didn't have that same burst. And then he was banged up at the beginning of this year. Well, I talked to a couple people that were around the team late in the year, and they said, boy, this Jaden Thomas kid makes a lot of plays. No, then, of course, they didn't play him in the bowl game. I had somebody say, Jaden Thomas is going to play in the bowl game. He's going to make some plays. And I was like, that'd be nice when he doesn't play snap. But that's just, again, you've got to have a receivers coach. Look, Tommy Reese can't be sitting there thinking about during the game, like, have we gotten so-and-so in the game yet?
Right. That's
got to be the receivers coach's job. You determine who's going to play before the game, and then it's up to the receivers coach to make sure that you're getting that done.
Right.
And that's going to be some chance he's going to have to really work on. But I've heard a lot about Jaden Thomas. And he's a bigger bodied kid, 6'1", over 200 pounds. He can play W, he can play X. Those are the two outside positions. He's another guy that's going to benefit a great deal from there not being a lot of guys out there this spring. So in some ways that's bad, but in some other ways, I think that's really good. And